One of the most famous developers on the MQL marketplace is back with a brand new bot. Mr. Stanislav has produced the Aura series of expert advisors, which are some of the best selling and most popular bots on the MQL5 marketplace. He's now back with a bot that trades Bitcoin, the Aura Bitcoin Hash. So really excited to see how this one differs from his previous Aura bots, and if it's a real bot, and if he's making exaggerated claims, or if there's an actual strategy behind it. This video is sponsored by Prosperity Algo and our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Do you want to make 100+% annual returns through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout? Then click the link in the description. So Stanislav has made all of these different Aura bots in the past, and many of which actually make it to the top of the MQL5 marketplace. Aura Black has been there, the Neuron bot has been there. So he really has produced a lot of bots which do seem to be at least liked by many members of the community. My biggest qualm with his bots is his backtests are always extremely fake, so they always look absolutely magnificent and perfect, and there's absolutely essentially zero losses to them, and they have incredibly unrealistic returns. And he loves to do a lot of very fancy AI language. But on the other hand, people seemingly buy his bots very frequently. So maybe there is actually something real behind it. And what many developers in the MQL5 marketplace do is that they have a real trading strategy in the bot, but it's usually a pretty simple, basic technical analysis strategy, which works really well, like a channel breakout, but it's much harder to sell that, and it's harder to command higher prices for that. So you can actually have a real strategy underlying the bot, but on your sales page, you then say, oh no, it's using some crazy AI technology, and your backtest looks like it's going to make you a trillionaire overnight. I personally don't like this approach because I think it's somewhat dishonest to take, but it's still better than just selling something which doesn't work. So let's try and actually go through his bot in detail and see if maybe we can actually find the hidden underlying strategy behind this and what to look out for to make sure that it's following that strategy in the live signal. So here he's talking a lot about different multi-layer perceptrons, which are a type of neural network AI model. You actually can code these in expert advisors relatively easily, but quite often it's actually not the best type of model to use for this style of bot. I have found that it's extremely easy to overfit an MLP, and it's quite rare that you'll see them to actually make trading decisions unless you're using maybe a super quantitative approach used by an institutional fund. The way that I've seen AI used successfully in bots, I started doing it with random forests and more like tree-based models, which is quite popular more in the quant community. But at the same time, I have actually seen LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude used successfully here too, because you as the developer don't have to custom train the model. You can just use a pre-made model which has reasoning functions via a web request. And that I've seen to actually be rather successful too. And I've also implemented it myself. So that's also quite an interesting approach to take. And here he's saying that he's using these different types of models. Not so sure about that. Maybe he is, maybe he has a background to be able to do that, but it's very challenging to make an MLP, which is a multi-layer perceptron, in a non-overfit way in a trading context. Just keep that in mind. And then here he's not giving a ton of information regarding the exact strategy that it's using, but he's saying that it is trading Bitcoin on the H1 and that there's no ultra high risk strategies like martingale, grid, averaging, and then it's FIFO compliant, which is good for our US friends. And some of the interesting points here that he's looking at in terms of what he did to avoid over-optimization, these are all like absolute best practices, like walk forward or any sort of out of sample, in sample, out of optimization can be very, very useful, and you should always do that. You should never optimize in sample over your entire backtest period because you're just massively overfitting. He did some robustness check, minimum profit factor. He's making sure he's not using data snooping bias, and that he's also testing across multiple markets and limits and optimization cycles. Yes, these are all like absolute best practices. I do them as well. And the fact that he actually knows of these things shows that he does have a real background in trading. And although I don't love his marketing techniques, maybe because he is a knowledgeable guy, there is a real strategy here. But at the same time, it's hard to tell without too much more additional information. So we can see here in the equity curve is that it's making bunch of little trades, but this is on a higher time frame, so we're not quite sure. And what's a bit odd to me is that the equity curve here actually looks less perfect than the equity curve when you run a backtest, because here there are some losses occurring and it looks a bit more realistic. But if you actually run the bot in a backtest, it's absolutely perfect. So that's not great either. Maybe it kind of, to my earlier point, he is doing something in the backtest to make it look rosier than it really is, but live performance is different. But regardless, that's not a great sign. So if we look at his signal here, he's actually running an IC market signal, which is great because it shows that he's not using well trade, and you can't manipulate an IC market signal. So that's a great sign. And what we're seeing so far is he's only made one trade. So he's deposited $500 and he made one trade. And it was a very quick trade, or not that quick. It came in at 1 o'clock and it lasted until 48, so a 45-minute trade. It was with a micro lot on Bitcoin, but obviously, as we know, you can't really make any sort of conclusive decision based on just one trade. So if you are seriously considering this bot, I would wait to see the live signal for a few months, maybe 1 month at the minimum, to see if it actually has something robust behind it. So now let's hop over to MetaTrader. And as you can see here, like I've run the backtest and it's perfect, right? We turned $100,000 into $143,000 with a 100% win rate. And obviously this is fake, right? Like nobody can have a true 100% win rate, and there's no grid martingale happening here. But maybe, like, obviously this was manipulated. It ran rather quickly, so I would venture that he's just filtering out trades. He overfit in such a way that he's removing all the losers. But we can still maybe get an idea of how the strategy actually works. So from what I can see so far, it looks like a simple channel breakout, like a bidirectional channel breakout. Because we have, like, when a level is pierced, there's likely a pending order here, it opens a sell stop, or when a level is pierced here, it opens a buy stop. So it looks like a bidirectional breakout system on Bitcoin. And this type of strategy actually does work really well, particularly on Bitcoin. And I have had clients tell me that it's actually a fairly effective method. And if we go through the inputs tab, we can see that he has the option of a trailing stop loss, and he has some risk management settings too. But if we run a visual backtest, I would venture that it's just running a bidirectional caller pending orders on Bitcoin. And it's running on a few different time frames here. Let me go max speed. So it's pretty slow in visual backtest because he's just running a ton of different orders. Okay. Let me instead just run it non-visual, but look at the journal to be able to see what type of orders are being executed. So if we run it non-visually, we'll see that, like, obviously you have this perfect equity curve, so there's some degree of manipulation. But if we read the journal, usually it can tell us what type of order is happening. So market sell, oh, it's actually taking market orders. Order performed, deal performed, market sell. But I'm curious if we go into the report and we look at the deals. Yeah, so means it's being hit. It's hitting a trailing stop loss. So he's using a tight trailing stop loss to actually execute and to trail it. And it actually appears to be entering with markets, maybe not pending orders. Let's actually go here and go to orders and deals. We just have buy, sell, in. We don't have any. I don't believe we have pending. I could be misreading this. Don't quote me. I oftentimes prefer to just see it visually. But it appears to be a market sell, unless I'm making a mistake. Please tell me if I'm making a mistake. But regardless, he could just be doing market sell once it reaches a certain level, and then trailing with a tight trailing stop loss, breakout, and bidirectional. But he's going both long and short. So this is actually a real strategy. It's just so heavily over-optimized, we don't really know its performance. So maybe we should, like, if you are seriously considering this bot, just wait to see the signal, wait to see if we get some more consistent performance, and then it could be something maybe to consider, because there is, I think, a strategy here, but I don't really like it when developers put so much fakeness on top of a real strategy. So guys, let me know what you think, and yeah, keep me posted on if any of you guys buy this and what your experiences are. Take care, have a great day.